The conference room on Park Avenue smelled like polished wood and cold betrayal. A silver Mont Blanc pen rested between Lily Hart's trembling fingers as her lawyer whispered, "All you need is your signature." Across the glossy table, her husband, no, her soon-to-be ex-husband, Cole Mercer, leaned back in his chair, adjusting the cuff of his tailored suit. The Rolex on his wrist gleamed under the ceiling light, ticking louder than her heartbeat. He didn't look at her, not once. Outside, Manhattan was wrapped in mist, Fifth Avenue lights blurred by rain. Lily's reflection in the window looked like a ghost, pale, 6 months pregnant, holding on to the last bit of dignity she could afford. Cole's voice cut through the silence, smooth but sharp. "Let's keep this clean, Lily. I have a flight to Los Angeles this afternoon." He didn't mention the reason. Everyone already knew. The tabloids had whispered about the model Sloane Rivers for months. Lily pressed the pen to the paper. Her signature bled into the white like a wound opening. A single tear dropped onto the ink, spreading into the word divorce. The sound of her lawyer gathering papers felt like nails in a coffin. Cole rose, sliding his iPhone into his pocket. "Take care of yourself," he said casually, the way someone might talk to a stranger at a cafe. She wanted to scream. Instead, she smiled. The kind of smile people wear when they've lost everything and can't afford to fall apart. As the door shut behind him, she exhaled, shaky, silent, final. The city outside didn't pause. Taxis honked, sirens wailed, life went on. But for Lily, time stopped right there, in that room full of contracts and ghosts. Her lawyer hesitated. "Do you need me to call someone?" Lily shook her head. "No. I'll walk." She tucked the signed documents into her worn leather bag, grabbed her old iPhone, and stepped into the drizzle. The rain tasted metallic, almost bitter. She walked past the luxury storefronts, Cartier, Dior, Tiffany, each window reflecting a version of life that used to be hers. Her hand brushed against her belly, feeling a faint kick. "We'll be okay," she whispered to the baby. "I promise." Then, from across the street, flashbulbs burst. A photographer shouted, "Mrs. Mercer, is it true he's marrying Sloane next month?" Lily froze. For the first time, she realized the divorce wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of her public humiliation. And the whole world was already watching. The wedding photos hit every newsfeed before Lily even finished her morning coffee. Cole Mercer, the visionary tech CEO, and Sloane Rivers, the runway darling, smiled beneath a glass chandelier inside the Plaza Hotel. The captions read like poetry for the cruel, power couple of the year. Sloane's gown shimmered with hand-stitched crystals. Cole's tuxedo was perfectly pressed, his eyes full of pride. They looked like the kind of people the world worships, untouchable, glossy, and heartless. Lily sat in her small rented room in Queens, wearing an oversized sweatshirt that barely covered her baby bump. The glow of her old MacBook Air cast a cold light on her tired face. Every tabloid headline felt like a slap. She turned the screen away, but the echo of the photographs burned into her mind. Cole's arm around Sloane, his lips pressed against her cheek, the way he used to kiss her when the world still felt safe. A knock on the door broke her trance. It was Maya Brooks, her college roommate, now a sharp-tongued lawyer who refused to let Lily drown in silence. Maya carried 2 Starbucks coffees and a brown paper bag. "I brought breakfast," Maya said gently. "And the news. You've seen it?" Lily nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "He married her, the same week our divorce papers were finalized." Maya exhaled. Classic Cole. He thinks this makes him untouchable. But the law doesn't forget so easily. He still owes prenatal coverage under the spousal health clause. Lily smiled weakly. "He'll find a way to dodge it." "Then we'll find a way to corner him," Maya said, placing the coffee in her hand. "Drink. You're keeping 3 lives alive now." Lily looked down at her belly, feeling a soft movement under her palm, 3 little heartbeats depending on her. She wanted to believe Maya's confidence, but everything inside her felt hollow. That night, she couldn't sleep. Rain tapped against the window, steady and cruel. She scrolled through her phone again, pictures from the wedding, from the same ballroom where Cole had once told her he loved her. The comments below were merciless. "Upgrade achieved. That poor ex-wife must be fuming." She locked the phone, turned off the light, and sat in darkness. Her mind replayed every memory, how Cole used to text her from board meetings, how they'd shared late-night pizza on the floor of their first apartment. She had believed in him, defended him, built his world from scratch while working 2 jobs. And now, that same world had no place for her. The next morning, she went to her part-time editing job at a small media agency in Midtown. Her supervisor barely looked up. "Hey Lily, we need those promo cuts by tonight. Also, HR wants to confirm your maternity leave status." Translation: they were preparing to replace her. During lunch, she sat on a bench outside Rockefeller Plaza, biting into a cold sandwich. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the building's glass. Tired eyes, messy hair, a body both fragile and strong. She pulled out a notebook and started writing, "I will rebuild, even if it kills me." Just as she closed the notebook, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number appeared. "You should stop showing up where you're not wanted. He's moved on. So should you." No name. But Lily didn't need one. The words smelled of Sloan, perfumed cruelty, wrapped in digital ink. She deleted the message and whispered, "You'll see." When she stood up, the city felt different, colder, sharper, but alive. She could almost hear Manhattan whispering its challenge, fall apart or fight back. As she walked away, a headline flashed across the Times Square billboard. Cole Mercer and Sloan Rivers jet off to the Hamptons for their honeymoon. Lily didn't stop to look. She just kept walking, hand on her belly, eyes forward. Because for the first time, revenge didn't feel like hate. It felt like survival. It was close to midnight when the last bus rumbled through the wet streets of Manhattan. The city that never slept had turned gray and tired, like Lily Hart herself. Her shift at the editing studio had dragged late again, and by the time she stepped into the rain, the neon lights reflected off puddles like broken dreams. She clutched her worn leather bag to her chest, her breath visible in the cool air. 6.5 months pregnant, exhausted, and alone, she was surviving one day at a time. The bus was nearly empty. A man in a dark overcoat sat near the back, reading something on his iPad. An older woman dozed by the window, her grocery bag resting on her lap. Lily sank into a seat, massaging her swollen ankles. She checked her phone. No new messages, not even from Maya. Her ex's wedding still haunted every headline, and every scroll felt like reopening a wound. She tucked the phone away and stared out the window at the glowing skyline. Halfway across the Queensboro Bridge, the bus jerked violently. A tire hit a pothole, and Lily's world tilted for a second. Pain tightened in her lower belly. "Oh no," she whispered, gripping the seat. Sweat dotted her forehead. The driver shouted, "Everything okay, miss?" Before she could answer, the man in the back had already stood up. He moved quickly, calm but focused. "She needs air," he said, voice steady. He took off his coat and knelt beside her. "Breathe, slow and deep. I'm Edward." His tone was professional, reassuring, someone used to taking control. The driver pulled over near a gas station. Rain poured harder. Edward offered his umbrella, guiding her out carefully. "You shouldn't be riding alone this late," he said as they waited for a cab under the flickering streetlight. His hair was dark and damp, a few strands falling across his forehead. He didn't ask intrusive questions, didn't judge her trembling hands. He just stood there, holding the umbrella over both of them, letting the rain soak his shoulders. When the cab arrived, he helped her inside. "Hospital?" the driver asked. Lily nodded weakly. Edward pulled a business card from his pocket and handed it to her. "If they don't admit you, call this number. Dr. Harris at Columbia Medical, he owes me a favor." Lily blinked, confused. "Why are you helping me?" Edward hesitated. "Because I've seen that look before. Someone who's trying to hold it all together." His voice softened. "No one should fight alone at midnight." Before she could thank him, he closed the cab door. Rain blurred his face as the taxi pulled away, leaving him standing in the glow of the streetlight, coatless and quiet. At the hospital, Lily was told the contractions were stress-induced, false labor, but a warning. The nurse smiled kindly. "You need rest, honey, and someone to take care of you." Lily nodded, holding Edward's card. The edges were already damp from her hands. Edward Langley, Langley Holdings. The name sounded familiar. A whisper from another world, one she thought she'd left behind. When she got home near dawn, the city was still wet and silent. She placed the card on her nightstand beside her ultrasound photo. 3 tiny heartbeats. 3 reasons to survive. Before falling asleep, she opened her old laptop and Googled his name. The screen lit up with headlines. Edward Langley, the reclusive billionaire who disappeared after his wife's death. Lily stared at the photo, his face in a tuxedo, standing beside a woman who looked like she'd been carved from sunlight. Her stomach twisted. The man who had helped her tonight wasn't just kind. He was powerful, and fate had just tied her life to his without either of them knowing it yet. The next morning, gray light spilled through the blinds of Lily's tiny apartment. The rain had stopped, but the city still smelled like metal and gasoline. She sat at the kitchen table, sipping a cup of weak coffee from a chipped mug, staring at Edward Langley's business card. The name felt unreal, like something pulled out of a movie. She had met a billionaire on a broken-down night bus, and he had treated her with more kindness than her husband ever had. Still, she told herself not to think about it. People like him didn't belong in her world. By 10 o'clock, she was sitting in the waiting room of the community clinic in Queens. The fluorescent lights buzzed, the air smelled of antiseptic. She rubbed her belly gently, whispering, "Hang in there, my loves." The nurse finally called her name, and within minutes, Lily was lying on the exam table, eyes fixed on the monitor as the sonographer moved the cold gel across her skin. "Everything looks busy," the woman murmured with a faint smile. "Miss Hart, did anyone tell you you're carrying triplets?" The words hit her like thunder. "Triplets?" Lily's mouth went dry. "Yes, 3, the nurse said, adjusting the screen. 3 small heartbeats flickered like tiny stars. "You're going to need close monitoring and plenty of rest. This kind of pregnancy is high risk." Lily's pulse raced. She was already struggling to pay rent and stay healthy. Now she had 3 babies growing inside her. Her hands trembled as the nurse handed her a packet of medical forms and a list of specialists. "If you feel dizzy, call immediately," she warned. Outside, the autumn wind bit through her thin coat. She stopped by a pharmacy to pick up prenatal vitamins, but had to put 1 bottle back when she saw the total. Her credit card had only $27 left. That evening, Maya dropped by with groceries and a small Amazon box. "Don't ask how I knew," she said, placing it on the table. "It's a used Kindle. Read something that doesn't break your heart." Lily smiled faintly. Inside the box was Atomic Habits by James Clear, bookmarked halfway through. "You highlighted all over this," Lily said. "Yeah," Maya replied. "I needed it after my last breakup. You'll need it more." They ate instant noodles together while the city buzzed beyond the windows. For a moment, Lily felt normal again. But later that night, a sharp pain gripped her abdomen. She gasped, spilling her tea. Maya jumped up. "Hospital now!" The emergency room smelled of bleach and fear. Lily was rushed into an exam bay, heart pounding. The doctor checked her vitals, then looked her straight in the eye. "You're showing early signs of preeclampsia, high blood pressure, and swelling. Stress will make it worse. You'll need supervision, maybe even bed rest." Lily's throat closed up. "I can't afford that," she whispered. "You can't afford not to," the doctor said softly. Hours later, Lily sat in the hospital hallway, exhausted, paperwork on her lap. Her phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. "If you're smart, you'll stop dragging this out. He's not coming back for you." Sloan again. Lily deleted the message, her jaw tightening. Then, a nurse approached with a clipboard. "Miss Hart, you have a visitor." Lily frowned. "A visitor?" The nurse pointed toward the glass doors. Standing there, in a gray suit and rain-soaked hair, was Edward Langley. He held a small bouquet of lilies, white, simple, understated. "How did you even know I was here?" she asked as he approached. He smiled faintly. "You said you might need that doctor's number. I figured I'd check if you actually called." And just like that, for the first time in months, Lily felt the world stop spinning. A week after her hospital scare, Lily tried to return to some version of normal. She worked from home for the agency, editing short videos on her old MacBook Air, pausing every few minutes to catch her breath. The doctor had told her to rest, but rent was due, and her insurance didn't cover much. She promised herself she'd take it slow. Just finish one more project, one more week. That morning, she decided to walk to the grocery store. The air was sharp and cold, her coat barely buttoning over her belly. Inside the building lobby, she pressed the elevator button and waited. The doors slid open, and her heart froze. Standing inside was Sloan Rivers. She looked even more unreal up close. Perfect hair, flawless skin, a designer trench coat that probably cost more than Lily's yearly rent. Beside her stood a stylist carrying garment bags, and a young assistant scrolling through an iPhone. For one second, Time stalled. Sloane's eyes flicked over Lily's pregnant belly and a smirk curled across her lips. "Oh," she said, voice dripping sugar. "You're Lily, right? Cole's ex?" Lily nodded silently. Sloane leaned closer, whispering just loud enough for the others to hear. "You're glowing. I mean, for someone who's doing this alone." The assistant chuckled. The elevator door opened again, and Sloane stepped out, her perfume trailing behind like expensive poison. "Good luck, sweetheart," she added, tapping her diamond ring against the railing before walking away. Lily stood frozen until the doors closed. Her face burned. The humiliation stung deeper than any headline or whisper. She wanted to scream, but instead, she pressed her hands over her belly, whispering to her babies, "Don't listen. We're not alone." She walked out of the building and into the wind. Across the street was a small Starbucks. She ducked inside, ordered a plain coffee she couldn't finish, and sat by the window. Outside, life moved on. People in suits, laughter, umbrellas gliding past. She took out her notebook and wrote, "Pain doesn't kill you. It teaches you who you are." Her phone buzzed. A text from Maya. "Got your hospital bill. I'll help for now. But please, Lils, you need a miracle." Lily smiled bitterly. "Yeah," she muttered. "A miracle would be nice." Just then, a black Mercedes S-Class slowed near the curb. A familiar figure stepped out, holding a paper bag and umbrella. Edward Langley. He spotted her through the window, hesitated, then entered the cafe. "May I?" he asked, pointing to the empty seat across from her. Lily blinked in surprise. "What are you doing here?" "I had a meeting nearby," he said, setting the bag down. "And I thought you might need something other than hospital food." Inside the bag were muffins and herbal tea. She tried to protest. "You don't have to keep checking on me." He smiled softly. "Maybe I want to." Lily stared at him, unsure what to say. Edward's eyes weren't the cold blue of the rich. They were warm, steady, curious. The kind of eyes that made you want to trust again. "I saw your ex's wedding photos," he added carefully. "They looked expensive." Lily laughed for the first time in weeks. A dry, shaky laugh. "Yeah, he's good at expensive." Edward tilted his head. "Then maybe it's time you learned to be good at surviving." When Lily looked up, the rain had started again, tapping the windows like tiny reminders of the world's indifference. She sipped the tea, feeling something unexpected, calm. Outside, Sloane's luxury car sped past in a blur. But this time, Lily didn't flinch. She just smiled faintly, whispering, "We'll be okay." Because in a city that had taken everything from her, a stranger had given her back something priceless. Hope. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, sealed in thick ivory paper and embossed with Cole Mercer's law firm logo. Lily stared at it for several minutes before tearing it open. The first line read like a command, "Non-disclosure and financial settlement agreement." She didn't need to read further to know what it meant. Cole wanted silence. Her silence. She read each clause carefully, her eyes blurring with disbelief. The offer included a modest financial payout in exchange for complete confidentiality. She could never speak publicly about their marriage, their divorce, or the pregnancy. The words, "irreversible forfeiture of moral claims," jumped off the page like poison. At the bottom, a signature line waited for her name. Her phone rang. It was Maya. "You got it too, didn't you?" Lily's voice trembled. "He's trying to buy my silence." "Of course he is," Maya snapped. "He's getting ready for a new IPO launch. Any scandal about a pregnant ex-wife could sink him." Lily pressed a hand against her belly, feeling a small flutter. "He's offering just enough to make me think twice. Enough for a few months of rent, maybe medical bills." "Don't sign it," Maya said firmly. "You sign that and he gets to rewrite the story. He wins twice, once when he left you, and again when you disappear." But Maya's confidence couldn't hide the truth. The bills were piling up. Her insurance claim had been delayed. She had less than $100 in her account. The temptation was suffocating. That night, she laid the document on her kitchen table. The pen trembled in her hand. "Maybe it's easier this way," she whispered. "Just end it quietly." Then, as she looked at the line meant for her signature, her phone buzzed again, a message from an unknown number. "If you really cared about your babies, you'd stop embarrassing their father." Lily froze. The room tilted. She didn't need to guess who sent it. Sloane's tone was all over it. A mix of arrogance and insecurity, wrapped in fake sympathy. Something inside Lily snapped. She ripped the paper in half, then again until the pieces fell like confetti on the floor. He doesn't get to silence me, she said out loud. Not this time. The next morning, she marched into Maya's office at a small firm downtown. Maya looked up, startled. Tell me you didn't sign it. Lily dropped the shredded pages onto her desk. I didn't. But I want to make sure he never tries this again. Maya smiled grimly. That's my girl. We'll file for full medical coverage under spousal responsibility. The court will make him pay hospital expenses for all 3 babies. He'll hate every second of it. That afternoon, they mailed the documents to Cole's corporate attorney. Within hours, the phone rang again, this time a private number. Lily, Cole's voice drawled, cold and condescending. You really want to make this ugly? She inhaled slowly. You made it ugly the day you walked away. You think anyone will believe you? He sneered. You're a nobody living in Queens. I own this city. And maybe it's time the city saw who you really are. She hung up before he could answer. That night, Lily sat on her bed, surrounded by unpaid bills and empty notebooks. She felt terrified, but also something new, something sharp and alive, power. As the wind rattled the windows, she whispered to her unborn children, They think I'm weak. They have no idea what a mother can do. Outside, thunder cracked across the skyline. For the first time, Lily didn't flinch. She looked out toward Manhattan's glowing towers and thought, let it begin. The night began with a strange stillness, the kind that makes you feel something's about to break. Lily woke at 2:47 a.m. to a dull ache in her lower belly. At first, she thought it was another round of false contractions. She'd been through dozens over the past week. But this time, the pain came sharper, rhythmic, and closer together. When she tried to stand, her knees buckled. A warm trickle ran down her leg. Her breath caught. No, not now, she whispered. Please, not yet. Outside, rain tapped against the window, whispering in sync with her heartbeat. She reached for her phone and dialed 911. Voice shaking. The dispatcher stayed calm. Stay on the line, ma'am. Help is coming. But the contractions grew fiercer, her body trembling with each wave. She clutched the edge of the kitchen counter, whispering, Please, babies, just hold on. The pounding at the door startled her. She dragged herself to open it and froze. Edward Langley stood there, drenched in rain, his eyes wide with alarm. The nurse called me, he said quickly. You weren't answering your phone. Let's go. He scooped her coat over her shoulders, half carrying her down the stairs. A black SUV waited outside, engine running. Stay with me, Lily, he urged as she gasped through another contraction. His voice steadied her, even as pain split through her body. The city was eerily empty at that hour. Streetlights glowed against the slick pavement. Inside the car, Edward kept his hand on hers the whole drive. You're going to be okay, he murmured. I've got you. At Columbia Medical, nurses rushed to meet them. Triplets, Edward told the doctor, his tone leaving no room for delay. Within minutes, Lily was wheeled into the operating room, her vision blurring from exhaustion and fear. The last thing she saw before the light swallowed her was Edward standing by the window, watching her disappear behind the double doors. Hours passed like seconds. When she woke, the world was silent. Then came a sound, 3 faint cries, delicate but real. Tears slipped down her cheeks before she even saw them. The nurse smiled. They're small but strong. All 3 are breathing on their own. Lily's throat closed with gratitude. Can I see them? Soon, the nurse said softly. They're in the NICU for observation. You did beautifully. Edward appeared at her bedside, his shirt wrinkled, hair a mess, eyes bloodshot from hours without sleep. In his hands were 3 tiny knit caps, pink, blue, and yellow. They're perfect, he whispered. Lily tried to smile. How did you? I called Charlotte, he said. She sent them. She's already organizing a care team for you. She blinked, confused. Why would you do all this for me? Edward hesitated, then said quietly, because sometimes life gives you a second chance when you least expect it. And I'm not the kind of man who ignores that. Her fingers brushed his. Something unspoken passed between them, gentle, electric, dangerous. Moments later, a nurse wheeled in 3 incubators. Lily stared through the glass at the tiniest faces she had ever seen. They looked fragile, like porcelain angels. Each one moved slightly, as if already fighting to stay in this world. Hi, my loves, she whispered. Mommy's here? Edward stepped closer, watching her with quiet awe. They're going to have your strength, he said. She shook her head. No, they'll have their own, stronger than mine. As dawn bled across the Manhattan skyline, Lily finally let herself breathe. The pain, the loneliness, the humiliation, it had all led here, to this moment of fragile perfection. And as the sun rose, Edward's reflection appeared beside hers in the glass, their faces overlapping. Neither of them spoke, but they both knew. This wasn't just the end of one life, it was the beginning of another. The days after the birth blurred into a haze of antiseptic light and sleepless hours. Lily lived between the NICU and her hospital bed, watching 3 tiny miracles fight for every breath. Each baby had a bracelet with a name she'd whispered during labor: Noah, Grace, and Eli. They were so small she could cradle an entire hand in her palm. Every beep of the monitors reminded her how fragile life could be. Edward visited every day, never uninvited, always calm. He brought coffee, clean blankets, and silence, the good kind, the kind that made it easier to breathe. Nurses seemed to recognize him, whispering, "That's Langley," as he passed. But to Lily, he wasn't the billionaire from headlines. He was the man who held umbrellas, who didn't ask questions, who sat quietly when she cried. One afternoon, a social worker entered with a clipboard. "Miss Hart, we need to discuss post-discharge arrangements. Given your health and the baby's conditions, you'll need full-time assistance for at least 2 months." Lily's stomach twisted. Assistance meant money, money she didn't have. She tried to smile. "I'll manage. I'll work remotely." The woman frowned. "That won't be enough. You're recovering from surgery and raising 3 preemies. It's not safe." When she left, Lily stared out the window, watching snowflakes drift over the Manhattan skyline. She felt trapped between pride and desperation. That evening, Edward appeared again, holding a paper folder. "I heard about the discharge," he said gently. "I'd like to offer you a place to stay, at least until the babies are strong enough." She blinked. "What?" "There's a guest house on my family's property on the Upper East Side. Private, quiet, fully staffed. You'd have access to medical care around the clock." Lily frowned. "I can't accept charity." "It's not charity," he said, meeting her gaze. "It's logistics. The hospital's expensive, and I've already arranged a neonatal specialist for follow-up. You'd be safer there." "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. Edward hesitated. "Because I've been where you are. I watched someone I love fight for life while everyone else turned away. I couldn't save her, but maybe this time I can help someone else." His honesty disarmed her. Still, she couldn't shake the fear of dependency, the same trap she'd fallen into with Cole. "If I say yes," she said slowly, "I need rules, clear ones." Edward nodded. "Then we'll have rules." Together they outlined them that night in the hospital cafeteria. She would pay what she could, when she could. She would remain independent, responsible for her career decisions. No emotional obligations, no blurred lines. When they finished, Edward extended his hand. "Deal?" Lily shook it. "Deal." 2 days later, a black car picked her up from the hospital. The city shimmered under a blanket of snow as they drove toward the Upper East Side. The Langley estate appeared like something out of a dream, a gated townhouse with ivy-covered walls and warm light glowing through the windows. Charlotte Langley, Edward's sister, greeted her at the door. "Welcome," she said kindly. "We've prepared the nursery." Lily stepped inside and froze. 3 cribs stood side by side beneath a soft mobile, sunlight spilling across white curtains. A nurse adjusted bottles on a tray. It didn't feel like a stranger's house. It felt like safety. That night, after the babies finally slept, Lily stood at the window, looking down at the city she once thought had destroyed her. Now, it glittered again, distant but beautiful. She whispered, "Thank you." Not sure if she meant Edward, fate, or the quiet miracle of still standing. In another wing of the house, Edward sat by his study window, sipping black coffee. From across the snowy courtyard, he could see her silhouette in the nursery light. And though neither of them said it out loud, both knew something bigger had begun. It started with a single photograph, grainy, out of focus, but powerful enough to set the internet on fire. A man in a navy coat holding a tiny baby outside Columbia Medical. The headline read, "Mystery Billionaire Seen Leaving Hospital with Unknown Woman's Child." Within hours, gossip sites identified him as Edward Langley, the reclusive widower turned investment mogul. And the woman, though her face was half hidden by a scarf, was soon identified too. Lily Hart, ex-wife of tech CEO Cole Mercer. Lily found out the next morning when her phone exploded with messages. Maya called first. Don't check social media. Don't even open your phone. The vultures are circling. But it was too late. A flood of headlines filled her screen. From divorce papers to a billionaire's arms, Mercer's ex finds a new fortune. The photos made it look like Edward and Lily were a couple. The baby's theirs. One outlet even claimed they'd been secretly dating before her divorce. Her hands shook as she read the comments. Mocking, cruel, relentless. Guess she landed on her feet. Smart girl. Upgrade achieved. It was the same humiliation all over again, but this time on a global scale. Edward came to the guest house within the hour. His expression was calm, but the tension in his jaw betrayed his anger. I've already contacted my publicist, he said, setting his phone on the table. We'll issue a statement clarifying that you're under medical care through my foundation. I don't want pity, Lily snapped. I want them to stop. Edward's voice softened. They won't, not yet, but the truth will outlast the noise. Later that afternoon, Charlotte joined them, bringing a pot of tea and her quiet authority. We can't let this spiral, she said. We'll announce that the Langley Foundation is sponsoring neonatal care for single mothers. That reframes the story, makes you a cause, not a scandal. Lily frowned. You want to turn me into a press strategy? Charlotte met her gaze. I want to protect you, dear, and your children. Trust me, public sympathy is armor in this city. The statement went live that evening. The Langley Foundation confirms it is supporting Miss Sinead Lily Hart and her newborn triplets through its maternal health initiative. It was polished, professional, and completely true. Yet the truth didn't stop the whispers. It only redirected them. Cole Mercer saw the news from his office overlooking Central Park. His assistant froze when he slammed his phone on the desk. She's playing the victim, he growled. And Langley's helping her. Get my PR team. We're not letting her ruin my image before the IPO. Sloane, lounging nearby in a white silk robe, smirked. Maybe she's better at this than you thought. Don't push me, Sloane. Oh, darling, she said sweetly, sipping champagne. I don't have to. Back at the Langley townhouse, Lily tried to feed the babies, her hands trembling. The nurse turned on soft music to calm them. Edward stood in the doorway, silent, his expression unreadable. I didn't want this, Lily murmured. I didn't want to be in the spotlight again. He stepped closer. You didn't ask for any of it, but you can choose what happens next. Lily looked up, meeting his eyes. And what if I fail again? Edward smiled faintly. Then you'll fail forward. That night, she sat by the window after everyone had gone to bed, scrolling through another article, this one from the Wall Street Journal. Langley Foundation's new program earns praise for supporting single mothers. For the first time, the comments below weren't cruel. Someone had written, whoever she is, she must be strong. Lily closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. For the first time, the world was talking about her strength, not her shame. And somewhere deep down, she knew this wasn't the end of her story. It was her quiet comeback, written one headline at a time. Spring crept into Manhattan like a sigh of relief. The snow had melted, the air smelled faintly of lilac, and the Langley townhouse garden bloomed behind wrought iron gates like a hidden paradise. It had been nearly a year since that first night on the bus, since Lily's life had fallen apart and begun again in the same breath. The triplets were thriving now, all chubby cheeks and giggles, filling the house with music. Lily had started working part-time as a freelance editor again, balancing motherhood and independence with quiet grace. But something had changed between her and Edward. It wasn't sudden, it grew slowly, like the ivy crawling up the garden walls. Late-night talks became laughter over morning coffee, and shared glances stretched a little too long. They never crossed the lines they'd drawn months ago, but somehow those invisible borders had begun to blur. One afternoon, Edward stood at the garden gate with a bouquet of peonies, Lily's favorite. She looked up from her laptop as he approached, smiling shyly. Those are dangerous, she teased. Flowers mean something's coming. He laughed softly. Then I guess I should come with a warning label. He hesitated, then handed her a small velvet box. Inside wasn't a diamond the size of pride. It was a simple platinum band, elegant and quiet, engraved with 3 initials, N-G-E. For them, he said softly. And for you, if you'll let me. Lily froze. Edward, I'm not asking because I feel sorry for you, he interrupted gently. I'm asking because somewhere along the way you became my piece, you, and those 3 miracles upstairs. You brought life back into this house." Her eyes filled with tears. "I don't want to be anyone's charity case." He stepped closer. "Then don't be. Be my partner. On your terms." Lily looked down at the ring, the sunlight glinting off the metal. She thought of every moment that had led her here. The divorce, the hospital nights, the loneliness. Somehow it had all led her to this man who offered not rescue, but respect. "Yes," she whispered finally, "but only if you promise one thing. Anything. That we never let the world define us again." Edward smiled. "Deal?" They married the following weekend, in the very garden where he'd asked. Only 5 people attended: Charlotte, Maya, the housekeeper who had become like family, and of course, the 3 babies in tiny white outfits. The ceremony was short but beautiful. No photographers, no press, no grandeur. Just truth. Charlotte read a small blessing from an old Langley family book. "May this home never mistake silence for emptiness, nor strength for hardness." When Edward slipped the ring on Lily's finger, her hands trembled. For the first time, she didn't feel small in her own story. She felt chosen. Afterward, they shared a simple meal under the ivy-covered pergola. The sun dipped low, painting the garden gold. Edward poured champagne. Lily toasted with ginger ale. "To survival," she said, raising her glass. "To love that doesn't need an audience," Edward added. Maya clinked her glass. "And to proving that sometimes the good guys win." That night, after everyone had gone, Lily stood alone in the quiet garden, barefoot on the cool stone path. The air smelled of jasmine. She looked up at the glowing Manhattan skyline beyond the walls and whispered, "We did it, Mama." The babies stirred in the nursery upstairs, their soft cries drifting through the open windows like a lullaby. Lily turned toward the light of the house, their home now, and smiled. For the first time since she'd signed those divorce papers, she wasn't surviving. She was living. The Langley Foundation Gala was the kind of event people spent years trying to get invited to. A glittering evening at the Ritz-Carlton, filled with Manhattan's elite. Every table dripped with crystal, every guest sparkled with old money and polished ambition. It was also the first time Lily Hart Langley would appear publicly since her quiet wedding. Her hands trembled slightly as Charlotte zipped the back of her gown. It was a sleek black Dior dress, classic but modest, paired with a delicate Tiffany pendant. "You look radiant," Charlotte said, adjusting the clasp. "Elegant, unapologetic, exactly what we need tonight." "I'm still not sure about this," Lily admitted, taking a shaky breath. "I don't want to be a headline again." Charlotte smiled knowingly. "My dear, you don't have to be a headline. You are the story." Edward entered, wearing a sharp tailored tuxedo, his cufflinks catching the chandelier light. He paused, taking her in. "You'll stop the room, Lily." She blushed. "That's not the goal." "Maybe not," he said softly, "but it will happen anyway." When they arrived at the gala, the air hummed with murmurs. Cameras flashed, but the Langley security team kept a respectful distance. As they stepped into the ballroom, conversations softened. Lily could feel the stares, the curiosity. Some saw a scandal reborn, others saw resilience. Edward guided her to their table. "Ignore the noise," he whispered. "You've already survived worse." Across the room, Sloane Rivers stood near the champagne tower, her silver gown shimmering like armor. Her career had taken a hit after several failed campaigns, but she still knew how to command attention. When her gaze met Lily's, her smile was all venom. "Well, if it isn't Mrs. Langley," Sloane said when she finally approached, voice dripping with false sweetness. "Quite the comeback. I must say, Edward, you have a type. Brave, broken women with big eyes." Lily's heart thudded, but she stayed calm. "You're right, Sloane," she said evenly. "It takes bravery to start over. You should try it sometime." Charlotte's eyes gleamed with pride from across the room. Sloane blinked, taken aback. Before she could reply, a waiter passed by and Lily turned gracefully away. Minutes later, the host called Edward to the stage to present the evening's main award for humanitarian excellence. He took the mic and smiled at the audience. "This year," he began, "I've been reminded that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, through compassion, through courage, through rebuilding after the world writes you off." He turned slightly, meeting Lily's gaze. "And tonight, I dedicate this moment to those who prove that dignity and grace are louder than scandal." The audience applauded, and though his words were meant for the crowd, everyone knew who they were truly for. At the press table, a reporter whispered, "She's actually impressive, not what the tabloids said." When the event ended, Lily stepped out onto the balcony overlooking Central Park. The city glittered below, endless and alive. Edward joined her, slipping a shawl over her shoulders. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. "For the first time, I don't regret a single scar. They're the proof I made it." He smiled. "You've become the calm in your own storm." From below, photographers caught one final shot. Lily and Edward standing against the Manhattan skyline, her head resting on his shoulder, city lights framing them like stars. By morning, the photo would spread everywhere. But this time, the captions were different. "From scandal to strength, the heart of Manhattan's new power couple." For the first time, the world wasn't laughing at her. They were applauding. The morning after the gala, the headlines were kind, almost reverent. Lily Hart Langley, Grace under fire. For once, the internet wasn't mocking her. It was celebrating her. But victories in Lily's life never came without a shadow. That shadow arrived 3 days later in the form of a thick envelope, delivered by courier to the Langley townhouse. Edward found her in the nursery, humming softly as she rocked Grace to sleep. "This came for you," he said, holding the envelope with a frown. The letterhead made her stomach twist. Mercer and Finch, attorneys at law. She opened it, and the color drained from her face. It was a petition. Cole Mercer was filing for partial custody of the triplets. For a moment, Lily couldn't breathe. The paper trembled in her hand. "He's doing this to hurt me," she whispered. "He never even saw them once." Edward's jaw tightened. He's not going to win. But Lily knew Cole's power. His lawyers, his money, his hunger to control the narrative. He'd use the system the way he always had, like a weapon. By noon, Maya was at the house, her laptop open, papers spread across the dining table. "It's a stunt," she said. "He's trying to stir public doubt before his company's IPO next quarter. If he looks like a devoted father, investors trust him more." Lily paced the room, anger shaking her voice. "He's using our children as PR props." "Yes," Maya replied. "And we're going to make him regret it." They began building their case. Hospital records, Cole's absence, financial neglect, even text messages that proved he'd refused support. Edward offered the Langley legal team, but Lily refused. "No," she said firmly. "If we fight him, we do it as me, not as your wife. I won't let him twist this into another rich versus poor circus." The first hearing was held in a quiet Manhattan courtroom. Cole arrived with his lawyers and Sloan, dressed in designer gray and feigned humility. He looked smug, charming, exactly the man he wanted the cameras outside to see. When Lily took the stand, he smirked slightly, like a man watching a movie he thought he'd already seen. But when Maya began presenting evidence, his confidence cracked. She displayed emails showing Cole's complete lack of contact during Lily's pregnancy, proof of unpaid medical bills, and most damning of all, a voicemail he'd left in anger months ago. "You think those kids will change anything? They're your problem, not mine." The courtroom went silent. Cole's attorney objected, but the damage was done. Lily's hands shook, but her voice remained steady. "He wasn't there when they were born. He didn't know their names. And now, after the world starts to respect me again, he remembers he's a father? No, Your Honor. He remembers he has an image." The judge looked at her over his glasses, expression unreadable. "Mr. Mercer, it appears your petition lacks merit. The court will maintain custody with the mother, with limited supervised visitation pending review." Cole's face reddened. Sloan leaned toward him, whispering furiously, "You promised this would work." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Flashbulbs blinded Lily as Maya led her through the crowd. Someone shouted, "Mrs. Langley, are you keeping the children from their father?" Lily stopped, turned, and met the cameras head-on. "I'm protecting them from what their father became." That clip would replay for days across every network. It was the sound of a woman refusing to be a victim anymore. Back in the car, Edward reached over and took her hand. "You were extraordinary in there," he said softly. She smiled faintly, exhaustion pulling at her eyes. "No, I was just tired of losing." As they drove away, Cole watched from the courthouse steps, fury simmering behind his polished mask. Sloan slipped her arm through his, but he barely noticed. Because for the first time he realized something chilling. The woman he once left behind wasn't broken anymore. She was dangerous. 2 months after the custody hearing, the world seemed to have finally stopped spinning against her. Lily was rebuilding her life, one small victory at a time. The triplets were growing. Noah laughed first, Grace learned to grab her mother's hair, and Eli had a cry loud enough to wake the city. The Langley townhouse no longer felt like borrowed space. It felt like home. She spent her mornings editing short documentaries for a local studio, working from her favorite corner near the window. Edward often passed by, coffee in hand, pretending he wasn't checking on her. Their love was steady now, quiet but rooted, like something earned through storms, not built on illusions. One afternoon, while Lily fed the babies, Charlotte entered with a letter embossed with gold. "This came for you," she said, "an invitation from the Fifth Avenue Gallery." Lily frowned, wiping formula from her sleeve. "A gallery? I'm not exactly art world material," Charlotte smiled. "It's not about art. They're hosting a charity exhibit, Mothers of Resilience, photographs and short films about women who rebuilt their lives. They want to feature you." Lily froze. "Me? Why?" "Because your story reached them," Charlotte said softly. "Someone from the Journal sent them that clip from the courthouse. The one where you said you were protecting your children from what their father became. It went viral." Lily set down the bottle, her heart pounding. "I didn't do that for attention." "I know," Charlotte replied. "That's why people believe you." A week later, the exhibit opened with champagne glasses and camera flashes. The gallery smelled of lilies and new paint. Large photographs of women lined the walls, doctors, soldiers, survivors. In the center of the room stood a single-framed photo of Lily holding her triplets, taken candidly by Charlotte one morning. The caption read, "Strength isn't inherited, it's rebuilt." Lily stood quietly at the edge of the crowd, uncomfortable under the attention. Edward approached in a tailored navy suit, proud but understated. "You belong here," he said gently. "Doesn't feel like it," she admitted. "I'm just a mom who survived bad luck," he smiled. "No, you're a story people needed to believe in." The evening unfolded beautifully until a familiar voice sliced through the soft music. "Well, if this isn't poetic." Lily turned to see Sloane Rivers gliding toward her in a backless silver dress, the same brand that once sponsored her failed campaign. "You look different," Sloane said, feigning kindness. "Success suits you." "Sloane," Lily said calmly, "you're at a charity event for mothers. Try not to turn it into a runway." Sloane's smile tightened. "You really think this new image will erase your past? You and I both know the press loves a good fall from grace." Before Lily could respond, a soft click echoed nearby. Reporters had turned their cameras toward the confrontation. Edward stepped forward instantly, his presence commanding the room. "Is there a problem here?" Sloane's bravado faltered. "Just congratulating your wife." "Good," Edward said coolly. "Then consider it done." The tension broke, but the damage lingered. That night, Lily scrolled through her phone, reading new headlines. Mercer's ex and his wife's rival face off on Fifth Avenue. The cycle was starting again. But this time, something inside her had changed. Instead of panic, she felt clarity. She called Ben Walker, her old mentor in television. "Ben," she said, "I want to make something. Not about me, about all the women who were silenced, shamed, or underestimated. A real documentary, honest and raw." Ben's voice smiled through the phone. "You finally ready to tell your own story?" "No," she said firmly. "I'm ready to tell ours." When she hung up, she felt lighter. For the first time, she wasn't running from the headlines. She was rewriting them. And somewhere in a penthouse overlooking the city, Cole Mercer watched the same story trending, his ex-wife's face glowing on every screen. He poured himself another drink, his reflection warping in the glass. Because for the first time, it wasn't her reputation burning, it was his. The morning after the gallery event, Manhattan buzzed with new rumors. Lily's photo from the exhibit had gone viral again, this time shared by business magazines praising her as a symbol of integrity. That single image made her more visible than ever. But visibility in a city built on power always came with danger. At Langley Holdings' glass tower on Park Avenue, Edward sat in a tense board meeting. The discussion was about a major acquisition deal, a series of high-profile properties led by a firm linked to Cole Mercer Enterprises. Edward's instincts prickled. He didn't trust coincidences, especially when they came wearing expensive suits. Charlotte leaned over to whisper, "Cole's people have been sniffing around our investors. He's trying to attach himself to this deal to rebuild his reputation. Edward nodded grimly. Then we need to cut him out before he poisons the room. Across the table, the lead negotiator projected a file onto the screen. Preliminary funding shows positive numbers, he said. Cole Mercer's tech subsidiary, Ardent Solutions, is offering infrastructure support for Phase 2. Their PR team claims it'll be good for public image, clean, sustainable redevelopment. Edward's voice sliced through the buzz. Public image is cheap. I want due diligence. By noon, a report landed on his desk, pages of red flags hidden behind layers of shell companies. Cole's fingerprints were everywhere. Fake valuations, insider loans, and a suspicious offshore fund. It wasn't a business partnership. It was a trap. Edward called Maya immediately. I need you and Lily to come to the office, he said. You both need to see this. When Lily arrived, the city skyline gleamed behind the glass walls. Edward laid out the documents. He's using the Langley name to launder his debt, he explained. If this goes public, it won't just hurt me. It'll drag your name through the mud again. Lily's face went pale. He planned this. The gallery, the charity, everything. It was bait. Maya scanned the pages, eyes narrowing. Cole always plays two games at once. He must have leaked the Fifth Avenue confrontation to set the stage. He wanted to paint you as unstable before this deal collapsed. That way, when the media comes for blood, it'll spill on you and Edward both. Lily gripped the edge of the desk. Not this time. We'll hit first. Maya smirked. Exactly what I was thinking. They spent hours building their counterattack. A coordinated press release, financial audits, and a quiet leak to a trusted journalist. The evidence of Cole's fraud would appear as if it came from within his own company. That evening, Edward attended the final investor dinner at the River Cafe, overlooking the Brooklyn Bridge. The restaurant shimmered with chandeliers and whispers of old money. Cole was already there, all charm and confidence, sipping whiskey beside potential investors. Edward, he said with a smile too smooth to trust, I was hoping we'd cross paths. I hear your wife's quite the star lately. Edward's expression didn't change. Funny, I heard you're about to become a headline yourself. Cole's smirk faltered. Right then, his phone buzzed. A wave of notifications lit up his screen. Emails, alerts, breaking news banners. The Wall Street Journal headline glared, Mercer Enterprises under investigation for financial misconduct. The color drained from his face. Investors began whispering. Cameras flashed. Edward leaned closer, voice low but lethal. You built your empire on lies, Cole. Consider this your eviction notice from my city. By the time Edward returned home, Lily was waiting in the living room, the babies asleep upstairs. She looked at him with quiet pride. Did it work? He loosened his tie, exhaling. He's finished. Lily nodded, a small smile forming. Then that's one less shadow over us. Edward brushed a strand of hair from her face. No, he said softly. It's your light that burned him down. Across the river, Cole stared out from his penthouse window, the Manhattan skyline reflected in the glass, bright, merciless, and indifferent. His empire was crumbling, and this time there was no one left to blame but himself. The Langley Foundation's annual charity gala at the Plaza Hotel was supposed to be a celebration of progress, an evening of elegance and gratitude. The ballroom shimmered under crystal chandeliers, violins sang over the hum of conversation, and the scent of peonies filled the air. For Lily, it was a full-circle moment. This was where her ex-husband had married Sloane Rivers. Now, she was returning not as a scandal, but as the woman everyone wanted to meet. She arrived on Edward's arm in a deep emerald gown, her hair swept into soft waves. The flashbulbs erupted like fireworks as they stepped out of their car. Mrs. Langley, over here? Photographers called. She smiled, graceful but calm, knowing every frame tonight would tell the world who she'd become. Inside, the city's elite swirled through champagne and gossip. Whispers followed her everywhere, admiration mixed with envy. That's her, one woman murmured. The girl who turned scandal into empire. Lily felt steady, untouchable, until a familiar voice slid through the noise like poison. Well, if it isn't Manhattan's miracle. Sloane Rivers appeared, her silver dress clinging like a second skin, a flute of champagne in her hand. Her smile was flawless, her eyes deadly. You've come a long way from Queens, she said sweetly. Tell me, do you ever miss being ordinary? Lily's lips curved into a cool smile. No, but I do miss when people like you didn't matter. Gasps rippled around them. Sloane's face hardened. Careful, darling. I built this world before you ever stepped into it. Then maybe it's time someone remodeled it, Lily replied. Before Sloane could respond, a deeper voice cut through the tension. Ladies, Cole Mercer said as he stepped closer, looking unnervingly composed in a black tuxedo. Still making scenes, I see. Lily turned to him, her pulse quickening. What are you doing here? I was invited, he said smoothly. Unlike some people, I still have connections. His smirk was the same one that used to make her stomach twist, only now it filled her with disgust. Security should be more selective, Edward said, appearing at her side, his presence a wall of calm power. Cole ignored him. Relax, Langley. I just wanted to congratulate the happy couple. Quite the story arc. From my ex-wife to billionaire bride. Maybe I should thank you for polishing what I left behind. The words hit like a slap. The room went silent. Lily took a slow breath and stepped forward. You should thank me for surviving you. She reached into her clutch and pulled out a small envelope. You remember these? She said, holding up photocopies, legal documents, old financial ledgers, proof of Cole's fraudulent shell companies. You forged these during our marriage. I kept them. The SEC has them now. Cole's smile faltered for the first time. You're bluffing? Am I? Lily asked softly. Or maybe you've just run out of lies. Gasps echoed. Sloane stepped back, her eyes darting between them. Edward didn't move, simply watching as Lily reclaimed the stage once stolen from her. Cole's mask cracked. You'll regret this, he hissed. Lily met his glare with calm fire. No, Cole. I already did. Now it's your turn. He started to speak, but Sloane suddenly turned to the crowd, voice trembling. He told me those accounts were clean. I didn't know. The photographers pounced. The flashbulbs went off again, brighter, harsher. Within seconds, the man who once held Manhattan's loyalty was cornered, caught between the woman he'd betrayed and the one who'd finally exposed him. Lily turned to Edward, her hand steady in his. Let's go home. As they walked out, the reporters shouted, the cameras chasing them like moths to light. But Lily didn't look back. Outside, the city glittered against the night sky. Edward squeezed her hand. You just ended him, he whispered. She exhaled slowly, the air sharp with victory. No, she said softly, he ended himself. And behind them, inside the golden ballroom of the plaza, the empire of Cole Mercer finally began to crumble. The fallout from the plaza confrontation hit Manhattan like a thunderstorm. Overnight, every major paper carried the story. Cole Mercer faces fraud allegations after public clash with ex-wife at charity gala. The photo of Lily standing tall, envelope in hand, made the front page of the New York Times. For once, she wasn't the scandal. She was the reckoning. But Cole Mercer wasn't the kind of man who went down quietly. 2 days later, a courier arrived at the Langley townhouse with another envelope. This one bore the seal of the New York Supreme Court. Edward read it first, his expression hardening. He's suing you, he said. Defamation. Lily's stomach dropped. Defamation? He committed fraud. He's claiming you fabricated evidence to destroy his business, Edward said, jaw clenched. He's trying to make you the villain. For a moment, old fear crept back into her chest. The same helplessness she'd felt during her divorce, when Cole's lawyers painted her as unstable and greedy. But this time, she wasn't alone. Maya arrived within the hour, heels clicking against the marble floor, her legal pad already filled with notes. We hit him with the truth, she said. The real documents, the timestamps, the witnesses. You want a war, Lils? Let's give him one. The next few weeks blurred into strategy meetings, late-night calls, and depositions. The tabloids churned out stories daily, some true, most twisted. Langley wife fights back. Ex-lover's revenge or justice. Lily tried not to read them, but sometimes she caught glimpses in grocery store aisles, her own face staring back at her under cruel headlines. Edward shielded her as much as he could, refusing interviews, tightening security. He's desperate, he told her one night as they walked through the quiet garden. He knows if he loses this case, his career and reputation are over. Lily exhaled shakily. He should have thought about that before ruining mine. When the court date finally arrived, the room was packed with press. Cole walked in wearing his usual armor, a custom suit and a smug smile. But up close, Lily could see the cracks. His eyes were bloodshot, his tie slightly crooked. The hearing began. Cole's attorney painted a picture of betrayal, claiming Lily had doctored financial statements out of vengeance. They called her emotionally unstable, vindictive, and obsessed. The same tired narrative, only now it fell flat. When it was Maya's turn, she called their first witness, a former Ardent Solutions accountant who testified that Cole had ordered falsified ledgers to inflate company value before the IPO. The courtroom murmured. Then Maya played an audio recording, Cole's voice unmistakable, sneering. "No one's ever going to trace that money. She's too naive to understand numbers anyway." Cole's face drained of color. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Mercer, is that your voice?" Cole's lawyer stammered. "Objection." "Overruled," the judge said sharply. The rest of the trial was just noise. The evidence was overwhelming. The media spun it as Mercer's meltdown. Investors began withdrawing. Sloan vanished from the courtroom halfway through, her phone buzzing with messages from brands cutting ties. When the ruling came, it was swift. Cole Mercer's defamation claim was dismissed with prejudice. The judge ordered him to pay legal fees and issue a formal apology within 7 days. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Lily again. One shouted, "Mrs. Langley, do you feel vindicated?" Lily paused at the top of the courthouse steps. "I don't need vindication," she said. "I just needed the truth." Her words aired live on every major network. Even the anchors went quiet for a moment. Later that evening, as the city glowed beneath their window, Edward poured her a glass of wine. "It's over," he said. Lily looked at him, her voice soft but steady. "No, it's not. He'll apologize, but not because he's sorry, because the world finally made him." A week later, the Wall Street Journal published a half-page statement from Cole Mercer. "I apologize to Lily Hart Langley for my false claims and past conduct. She acted with integrity. I did not." Lily read it once, folded the paper, and whispered, "That's the only signature of his I'll ever keep." For the first time in years, she felt free. By June, Manhattan had softened beneath the glow of summer. The city that once devoured Lily now seemed to bow to her. Magazines praised her for her resilience. Journalists called her the woman who rebuilt her own legend. And streaming platforms were already requesting rights to her documentary project. But for the first time, Lily didn't care about the noise. She wanted peace. Edward noticed before she said a word. "We're leaving the city," he told her one morning at breakfast, sliding a folded note across the table. "A week in the Hamptons. No press, no meetings, just you, me, and the kids." Lily smiled softly. "Do billionaires actually take vacations?" "Only when someone reminds them to," he said, kissing her hand. The Langley family's beach house sat on a quiet stretch of East Hampton, surrounded by dunes and white roses. The air smelled like salt and sunlight. The ocean stretched endlessly beyond the horizon, whispering secrets the city would never understand. The first night there, Lily stood barefoot in the sand, watching the triplets toddle along the shore, their laughter swallowed by the wind. Edward grilled on the patio, sleeves rolled up, the firelight painting his face gold. For the first time in years, she didn't feel watched, judged, or hunted. She felt human again. Over dinner, they spoke about small things. Eli's fascination with seashells, Grace's stubbornness, Noah's obsession with birds. It was simple and ordinary, yet to Lily, it felt like magic. When the babies were asleep, Edward opened a bottle of red wine and poured 2 glasses. They sat on the deck, the sound of waves lapping against the pilings. "You know," he said quietly, "when I first met you, I thought you were made of glass. Fragile but beautiful." Lily raised an eyebrow. "That's not exactly a compliment," he smiled. "I was wrong. You're steel wrapped in silk. You bend, but you never break." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "I had no choice. If I broke, they would have drowned me." Edward's gaze lingered on her. "You're not fighting anymore, Lily. You're building." For a moment, silence stretched between them, comfortable, warm. The moonlight danced across the water, reflecting like scattered diamonds. The next morning, she woke early and brewed coffee while the house slept. She stepped outside with her mug, the ocean breeze brushing her hair. From her phone, a notification buzzed. An email from the New York Times. "We'd like to feature you in our Women Who Redefined Success series." Lily smiled faintly but didn't reply. She deleted the email and instead took a picture of the sunrise to send to Maya. The caption read, "Finally breathing." Later that day, Ben Walker, her old mentor, called from Los Angeles. "Lily, I saw the news. The documentary pitch. Netflix wants it. They want you as executive producer." Her hand froze midair. "Me? Not just consultant? No, you. It's your story now. You own it. When she hung up, tears welled in her eyes. She turned toward the water where Edward played with the children, splashing and laughing. She realized that success didn't feel like applause or headlines. It felt like this: salt on her lips, laughter in the air, and peace she hadn't known she was searching for. That evening, they ate dinner under the fading sky. Lily watched the sunset burn orange and pink over the ocean, her heart full. "You know what I want next?" she asked. Edward looked up. "What?" "A foundation," she said, "for single mothers. Real help, housing, education, childcare, something that changes lives, not just headlines." He reached across the table, eyes soft. "Then we'll build it, together." Lily smiled, the wind tangling her hair. "It's strange," she whispered. "For so long, revenge kept me alive. Now, it doesn't matter anymore." Edward brushed her hand. "That's how you know you've won." As night fell over the Hamptons, the waves whispered like applause, carrying away every echo of her old pain. For the first time, Lily wasn't surviving or fighting or proving anything. She was simply free. September brought crisp air and a sense of change. Manhattan glittered under its autumn lights, but this time, Lily wasn't returning to chase survival. She was returning to lead. Her documentary, The Mothers Who Stayed, was premiering at the Metropolitan Cultural Center. It told stories of women who refused to break, narrated not by actors, but by the survivors themselves. For the first time, Lily wasn't the subject of a story. She was the storyteller. The red carpet outside buzzed with cameras, though this time the flashes felt different. They weren't hunting scandal, they were celebrating strength. Edward adjusted her shawl before they stepped out of the car. "You ready?" he asked softly. Lily smiled. "I've been ready my whole life. I just didn't know it." Inside, the crowd was a blend of elegance and emotion. Critics, journalists, activists, everyone wanted to see the woman who'd turned heartbreak into purpose. The theater lights dimmed, and the first scene flickered onto the giant screen. A montage of single mothers rocking babies, clocking in at late-night jobs, reading bedtime stories under flickering lamps. Then came Lily's voiceover. "They told us we were broken, but broken things don't vanish, they rebuild stronger." The audience was silent. Some wiped tears. When the credits rolled, the room erupted into a standing ovation. Cameras flashed. Lily's eyes glistened as she held Edward's hand. "You did it," he whispered. But not everyone was clapping for her. At the back of the hall, half hidden behind the curtains, stood Cole Mercer. His face looked older, the sharp arrogance replaced by exhaustion. The scandal, the lawsuits, the frozen assets, everything had caught up with him. Sloane had sold her tell-all interview months ago, leaving him publicly humiliated. He was a man stripped bare. When the crowd cleared, Lily found him waiting near the exit, his hands shoved deep into his coat pockets. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "I know," he admitted. "But I needed to see what you became. I became what you tried to destroy." He nodded, shame flickering across his face. "I deserved that. For what it's worth, I saw your film. It's beautiful." Lily's throat tightened. "You saw it?" "Yeah," he said softly. "You showed what I never understood. Real strength doesn't need a spotlight." He hesitated, eyes downcast. "They offered me a settlement if I turned over evidence on the board members who helped me cover up the fraud. I did it. I'm testifying tomorrow. I'll lose everything, but maybe it's time I did." For the first time, she believed him. Not because he sounded sorry, but because he looked human again, fragile, small, real. "Good," she said quietly. "You can't undo the past, Cole, but you can stop repeating it." He smiled sadly. "And you found something I never had, peace." She took a breath, steady and calm. "I found myself. That was enough." Before he left, Cole handed her a small envelope. "It's for the kids, college fund. No names, no headlines. Just don't tell them where it came from." Lily hesitated, then accepted it. Not for him, but for the children who'd never know the chaos their father caused. "Goodbye, Cole." "Goodbye, Lily," he said, and for once there was no venom, no bitterness, only silence. That night at the post-premiere gala, journalists surrounded Lily again. "Mrs. Langley, what message do you want your film to send?" one asked. She looked into the camera, her voice steady. "That women don't need saving. They need to be seen." Applause rippled through the room. Edward watched her from across the hall, pride softening his features. Outside, the Manhattan skyline shimmered against the night sky. Somewhere in the distance, a police cruiser drove past, The world kept moving, restless as ever. But inside Lily's heart, there was only stillness. For the first time in her life, justice didn't taste like revenge. It tasted like peace. Winter returned to Manhattan softly that year, covering the city in quiet snow instead of chaos. The Langley townhouse on the Upper East Side glowed with warm light, laughter echoing through its halls. 3 toddlers, Noah, Grace, and Eli, raced across the polished floors, leaving trails of toy cars and giggles in their wake. Lily stood by the window, coffee in hand, watching them tumble onto a pile of pillows beside the fireplace. It was their 3rd birthday. The living room had been transformed into a small wonderland. Pale blue balloons, ribbons, and a cake shaped like 3 tiny crowns. Nothing extravagant, nothing headline-worthy, just family, laughter, and peace. Charlotte entered carrying gift bags. "They're spoiled already," she said, setting them down with a mock groan. Lily smiled. They deserved to be. They were born fighting. From the kitchen, Edward's voice floated through. So was their mother. Lily turned, warmth filling her chest. He was wearing an apron dusted with flour, holding a tray of homemade cookies. "You're supposed to be a billionaire," she teased, "not a baker." He grinned. "Even billionaires have to earn their keep." Maya arrived next, holding a wrapped gift and a grin. "Look at this empire you built, Lils. Triplets, a husband who cooks, and peace that actually lasts. Miracles do exist." Lily laughed, hugging her. Miracles, or consequences that finally ran their course. They shared a quiet look, remembering everything it had taken to get here. The courtrooms, the heartbreak, the rebirth. Outside, snow drifted down over the city that once buried her, but had now become hers again. Later that evening, when guests had gone and the children slept, Lily and Edward sat by the fire. He handed her a small box wrapped in white ribbon. "Another gift?" she asked. "You already gave me everything I could ever want." "Not this," he said, his voice gentle. Inside was a silver locket engraved with 4 initials, LNGE. "When they're older," he said softly, "I want them to know who you were before all this, the woman who fought for them before she had anyone to fight with." Tears welled in her eyes. "You make me sound heroic." "You are," he said simply. They sat in silence for a moment, the fire crackling. Lily traced the locket's engraving with her thumb. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if that night bus never broke down?" Edward smiled. "Then I'd still be a man who thought kindness was just a word. And you'd still be walking through the rain, convincing yourself you were alone." She leaned against him, closing her eyes. "Funny how pain always leads you where you're meant to go." He kissed her forehead. "That's the thing about survival. It's just the beginning." As the firelight danced, Lily felt something she hadn't felt in years, complete stillness. She wasn't waiting for the next disaster or revenge. She was living in peace she'd built with her own hands. Across town, in a quiet apartment stripped of luxury, Cole Mercer sat on his couch, staring at a small framed photo of the triplets from a newspaper feature. His once steady hands trembled as he whispered, "Happy birthday, kids." No cameras, no audience, just the echo of what he'd lost. Meanwhile, back at the Langley home, Lily tiptoed into the nursery. The triplets slept soundly, cheeks flushed, tiny chests rising and falling in rhythm. She brushed a curl from Grace's forehead and whispered, "You're safe now. You're home." She lingered for a moment, then turned off the light. Downstairs, Edward waited by the window. Outside, the Manhattan skyline shimmered beneath the falling snow. He wrapped his arm around her waist as she joined him. "Everything okay?" he asked. She smiled softly. "More than okay." And as the snow fell over the city that had once broken her, Lily Hart Langley finally understood what it meant to win, not by revenge, but by peace, love, and legacy.